The big story this morning is a continuing story, the troubles of RIM, which Evan is...
it never ends.
Jim Balsillie has now left the board of directors altogether.
It was a long time coming.
And the big piece of news there is that they may put themselves up for sale.
I mean, that company's basically been up for sale for a couple of years right now. Now they're talking about considering strategic options, which is usually code word for we got to get out of here. We got to sell this thing.
It's an extraordinary story. We're going to go to Chip Cummins in Canada to get the latest. Chip, tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, well, last night was another information-packed quarter from RIM. It was the first chance for the new CEO to come out of the shadows from the two former CEOs who have led the company together for 20 years. So analysts were really looking for a sense that Thorsten Heins was headed in a new direction, which is something, of course, investors have begged for. Certainly, he had a much more bleak assessment for the company's prospects, an honest assessment, a lot of analysts said, about what to expect, including very, very tough market conditions through 2013. And as you said, the big news was this was the furthest RIM has ever gone in suggesting that they would be open to a sale, although Heins was very clear that his preference was to do joint ventures, turn the thing around, look for partners, licensing partners, etc.
Yeah, this has been an extraordinary story to watch, Chip. I mean, when you go back 5 years, how critical the BlackBerry was to the lives of so many people in the corporate world, and to watch how this company has lost the handheld war. Is there any speculation about who would buy? I mean, what kind of buyers are out there that are interested in the BlackBerry and interested in RIM at this point?
It's a really tough call because, after this very, very bleak assessment last night from the CEO, the big question is, if they are on the block really, which is still a question, although, they seem to signal that they would at least consider it if an approach came, who would buy a company whose future looks as questionable as RIM's does. Also last night, in addition to the departure of Jim Balsillie from the board, which I think most investors would probably say is a good thing, a clean break from the past. Heins also said he lost his chief technology officer and his chief operating officer. The company's also looking for a chief marketing officer. So as RIM sort of looks to the end of the year in the hopes of bringing out what they call their superphone, the next generation BlackBerry, which they banked on as their savior, the big question is how can they do it with such a slimmed down C-suite?
Chip, stick with us for a second. We're joined by David Benoit of Deal Journal. They're going to need a superphone to get out of this mess. What, 75% loss in stock value over the course of the year?
It is not looking good.
What can turn this company around at this point?
That's a good question. A good phone would help, certainly, like Chip just said. But it sounds like maybe they're looking even more drastic and possibly about selling the company, which is the first.
Look, you're at this is the tail end of it's actually kind of the beginning of the end of a commoditization cycle. The way to think about this is, go back 20 years, Alan Murray. I'll put you in my dream sequence. Go back 20 years. Remember what happened with the PC? PCs used to be $4,000 or $5,000. It was a field with a lot of competitors.
But are you talking about the commoditization of the BlackBerry or the commoditization of the smartphone?
Smartphone. You're in the phase in which the competitors kind of disappear. And there'll be a few competing technologies. Are you
predicting the disappearance of RIM? You're getting a little ahead of the story
I don't think I'm ahead of the story at all. I think what you're seeing right now is the disappearance of RIM. It's happening before your very eyes, Alan.
But Chip, we've got here at the Journal, we still have lots of loyal users of these phones. There are, 75 million of them out there. There's a pretty big installed base of loyal users. Absolutely.
And the company is actually still quite profitable. Their cash flow increased last quarter. Their stockpile of cash jumped by almost $500 million. So this company isn't going to, go away anytime this year. The question is, if it doesn't find a white knight, does it become a niche player? Does the BlackBerry become this sort of oddball smartphone that some people cling to, or some people with very specific, special, technical, or security needs holds on to, while the rest of the world goes on and functions with the whole host of other phones and devices that are out there and available. The other big question, of course, is, in terms of when you're talking about strategic investors, in Canada, where RIM is a Canadian company, in Canada, those investors, that pool of possible investors is quite small. I would say I can't even think of anybody who would be a good fit inside Canada. So the question is, how does the Canadian government think about a big strategic investor or an acquirer from outside the country? And while you would think acquirers from places like China would be ruled out automatically, even acquirers from the U.S. and Europe it's a sensitive subject here. So that's another big concern.
David.
Yeah, that's definitely a big concern. Certainly, this is not, in terms of someone buying this company, there are a lot of hurdles.
Look, investors. What do investors think? Investors are basically pricing this company more or less
it's going down.
at liquidation value. It's kind of at liquidation value right now. They're basically saying this company has no future. I'm not saying it doesn't, but the best part.
You're getting pretty close.
Think of it
But
like Yahoo. Doesn't matter who runs Yahoo. The company's future is compromised. RIM's the same way. They can bring in a new CEO. They can come out with the great super phone. Directionally, it takes a lot more to turn this company around.
Chip, when the CEO comes out and says, "Geez, these problems are worse than I thought they were going to be," that doesn't inspire confidence.
No, it doesn't, but I'll tell you what happened last night. The numbers came out, which were all bad, but everyone expected bad numbers. The stock price, which had been halted right before the announcement, resumed trading in after hours and fell almost 10%, as everyone expected. Then it started climbing back up and recouped almost all of its losses. Now, some of that might have been because people were encouraged by this hint that RIM was considering a sale. This morning, pre-market, it's up again. So I think investors are encouraged at least that Heins has been honest with them and said, here's our problems. I'm not guaranteeing I can fix them, but I'm looking at everything right now to try to fix them.
Yeah, okay, Chip, thanks very much.